Hey, Battle Plan community. We have Nick Ross on this podcast, and this is going to be a good episode because I've been following Nick for a little bit. He may not have known, but I scout the internet on good people and people that have just a good message and, maybe a good backstory. And I think we're going to get all of that today. I've listened to Nick. He's got the Circle the W podcast, and he's got a couple other things he does, and we're going to bring that up now. But I just want to give Nick the opportunity to say hello and what's up, and we're going to get into this thing today.
What's going on, everyone? I'm really excited to be here, Craig. Thanks for having me on, and looking forward to talking about how to impact some lives, how to move forward, and how to radically transform yourself into your highest possibility.
That's it. And Nick, he's good at basically bringing these lines. I get so excited. I get my words out and I get jumbled up, but I've listened to Nick deliver and he's solid. And I think it comes from his background in sales. So Nick works with the Nutrition Institute as well as the Business Coaching Institute. And he's helping a lot of people, a lot of professional development out there. And he's done a couple things in speaking as well. You spoke at Coaching Con, is that right?
Yes, I did. This April, it was a massive event, the largest in nutrition coaching industry history. Our keynote speaker was Ed Milet, who we'll get to radically transform my life when I found him on his podcast when I was going through some difficult traumas in my life. And Ed was like a massive mentor. And I literally got to stand right there and watch one of the best in the business, one of the best orators, one of the best health peak result coaches out there do it. And at that point, man, it was also a bit of like confirmation that I could do this well at the same level. And it was literally the best weekend of my life.
I love that. That's phenomenal. And I don't want to take anything away from, anyone who's growing and having a chance to, sit on stage with somebody that I'm sure that you listened to Ed as you were kind of up and coming and, somebody who's just like spoke into you and you have the chance to sit there and speak on the same stage that this guy gets a chance to speak to the audience. It's phenomenal. I shared a similar experience speaking down in Tampa a couple months ago with the 2020 Vision Summit, and Les Brown, somebody I listened to on a podcast, on a audio, on just all over the place. This guy's been around for a while, and he spoke like 3 or 4 people right before I got up there and kind of gave my spiel, and he blew the doors away, right? But I got a chance to meet him after and share some stories with him, and it was just a phenomenal thing. Just like you, I was blown away by being able to say, hey, I was able to stand on the same stage. Maybe my message wasn't as clean and deliverable as his, but that gives us the groundwork to work towards something in the future. No?
Yeah, and like to watch a professional like in the ring, to watch Ed, like how he would control his dynamics of his voice and his tonality, and how he'd lean down and like look at one person, and how he commanded and walked from one side of the stage to the other. Like, I love nuance. I love small details. And I just was able to just pick all of that up from him. And it was like a masterclass in public speaking, which is so cool. And a really full circle moment for me from where I had begun in my journey to where I had got in April. I was just like completely grateful and humble for that whole opportunity.
That's great. Now, you work with Jason Phillips, and I know that's kind of his baby, the companies that you work underneath, and you're in sales. I see a lot of the messaging you put up. I just reshared something you did with sales, right? So, that's kind of your background. Where'd that come from?
Yes, I'm the sales director for NCI and BCI. I'm also the sales coach for thousands of clients and our top elite clients in the boardroom, people doing up to $1 million, $3 million run rates in the nutrition coaching industry. And really teaching one framework throughout all of that, which is transformational sales. It's what I do, and my real love at this point isn't sales. I've been doing it for 17 years. It's more NLP, neuro-linguistics programming, which is a therapy to move people from pain to possibility, but you can extract a lot of it out, the influence, persuasion, and communication skills through it, and teach that through transformational weight loss or gaining lean muscle. And all of that skill sets of learning sales began 17 years ago. I was actually in the music industry. I went to school in Full Sail in Florida, which is like a creative technical school, and accelerated, I guess you would call it a for-profit school nowadays. And after getting an associate's degree in recording arts, I moved to Hollywood. I'm a farm boy from Pennsylvania. I grew up on a 75-acre horse farm in the outside of New York City in the Poconos in Pennsylvania. And after college, after I graduated, You make a decision in the music industry, you're going to move to New York, you're going to move to Hollywood, or you're going to move to Nashville, right? I didn't want to go back to the East Coast because there's nothing but drama and problems there. At the time, this was like early 2000s. I didn't want to go to Nashville because I was like, oh, I hate country music. I live here now for the last 12 years, by the way. So I moved to Hollywood with like a bunch of friends, and my first job just happened to be at like this legendary music shop in West LA Music in Santa Monica called West LA Music. And as a 21-year-old snot-nosed kid who did not deserve a job at this place, my first sales mentor, I try not to get emotional talking about him because he's just such an incredible human being. He passed away many years ago. His name was Mark Spiewak. He was my original sales mentor in my life. And I got a job there. And its claim to fame was we're the pro shop. And any given day, the most famous people in industry coming in and out. And that's where I got my sales chops. Like sales is really difficult. And I had to get my chops and learn these skill sets in an extremely competitive market in Hollywood and Santa Monica and LA, and got to learn from the best and have to keep up with the best. So it's the only job I've ever had. I've been in sales since the moment my first job out of college 17 years ago.
Right on. And that's phenomenal. I love that you kind of just stuck to it. You're like, this is what I know, this is what I'm at, and this is I'm in. I have part of a problem of doing too many different things all at once, which helps me go nowhere fast, right? My vertical isn't being in one company. It's like doing everything pretty good. And it's like, it's not the best way to be. There's a lot of wrongs that I've lived that I'm going to teach you guys in this podcast over the years. I've had plenty of successes, but there's probably a better way to do some of these. But that's great that you were in that. I want to circle onto something that this podcast generally speaks about: gain from pain. You know, a lot of people will come in here, and a lot of the guests that I bring on have something traumatic or have overcome something. Now, you've had cancer, right? You know, you've overcome that. What was that experience for you? When did that hit? Talk to me about that experience emotionally and kind of how you overcame it. Because a lot of the people that we help, I'm a professional development coach, a consultant. There's a lot of things that I do outside of just helping people in fitness. And, you know, this is all part of that growing and learning experience. So talk to me about your experience and kind of like what it meant to you and what were you going through?
Yeah, let me kind of back up a bit and pre-frame this and,
sure.
and kind of get it set up. So I grew up in Northeast Pennsylvania, 75-acre horse farm. At the max, we had 25 horses. Grew up in a very tiny family. I was an only child. You know anything about large farms? Like, you have a lot of kids because it's free labor. And so I worked my ass off my whole entire life, shoveling manure, building fences, running lawnmowers, bundling hay, you name it. And so what I found out at an early age was that if I played sports, I didn't have to work. So I played sports year round. I went to practices, the games, travel, and I didn't have to work, and I got to do what I loved. And my whole entire life, all I wanted to do was become a professional athlete in ice hockey. And so that dream was robbed from me when I was 16. When I was 16, I was driving with some other high school friends to the mall, of all places, if you guys remember what malls are. And we got T-boned at 65 miles an hour right where I was sitting. In the passenger side. I was the only one hurt. I don't remember any of it. I was ripped out of the car with jaws of life. I broke 6 ribs. I had severe head trauma, sent to the hospital. To this day, they said really the only reason I lived is because we were like in a 1980s Ford Mustang that was like made out of real steel, because the car just like was bent at 90-degree angle, like right where I was sitting. As I say, I still to this day don't remember the day at all. And because of that, my dreams of becoming a professional athlete, and I know everyone, like a lot of guys have that dream. I was a very good athlete.
Yeah.
I do believe I could have went to a D1 school and at least had an opportunity. And that dream was robbed from me at that point. It was something I couldn't control. And then what I did is I reverted to soothing tactics I learned from my father and my mother, which became drug and alcohol use, to soothe the pain of my dream being taken away. And so this addictive lifestyle started at 16 years old, started smoking Marlboro Reds, started drinking Yingling lagers, started drinking Jameson. That turned into drinking like half bottles and bottles of Jameson every couple of days. And that went on for 16 years. Wow. That lifestyle and those decisions, because I was a single bachelor in the music industry. I was in sales. I was making a good amount of commission early in my life, and I wanted to go out and have fun and party. And I lived in LA, Vegas, Dallas, Cincinnati, Nashville, Indianapolis. I was moving all the time and living a life. And so fast forward to the age of 32, March 23rd, 2016, I woke up and I had this lump in my throat. And I don't know why, but my immediate response was, you have cancer. Like that was the first thing that came to my head. And I smoked Marlboro Reds for 16 years at this point, a pack a day. I'm like, shit, man, do I have fucking throat cancer at the age of 32? So I went to the doctor, and at that time I thought I was invincible. I didn't even have a general doctor. I just looked someone up, went to the general doctor.
Yes.
And she's like, no, honey, you just have an infection in the back of your neck, because the week before I had 4 wisdom teeth surgically removed. And the week before that, I had the flu. So she gave me some antibiotics. But man, and I'm telling you, like, this sounds like a divine intervention. I'm not like that type of guy, to be honest with you, but something was speaking to me that day. I cannot ignore that fact. Yeah. In my head internally, the voice would not go away that something is wrong. So I went home, played some Madden, probably drank some more Jameson, smoking some more cigarettes till midnight. And I remember taking a shower. When I took a shower, I got out of the shower. For whatever reason, I examined myself. And in that moment, I found a lump on my left testicle. And it was like midnight. I lived by myself in a shitty apartment with like nothing in it. And I went in bed, turned on Netflix, and I went on WebMD. And it said, this is a terrible decision, by the way, which said, if you touch it and it hurts, it's not a tumor. It's something else. You could have UTI or something going on down there. Go to the doctor, but it's not a tumor. If you touch it and it doesn't hurt, it's a tumor. We can't tell you it's cancer, but it's a tumor. It could be benign, but it could be cancerous. Go see a doctor. That was Thursday night. I woke up Friday morning, called Urology Associates, which was a network of like 40 urologists in Nashville. Friday morning, they're all booked. So I'm on the phone with the receptionist, like crying my eyes out, like, hey, I think I have cancer. Please, I need to see a doctor right now. I'm freaking out. And God bless that woman. I don't know her name, but she contacted Dr. Balsante. I'll never forget this man. He was a young urologist. He forgoed his lunch to come see me. I drove 30 minutes immediately to go see him. They did the examinations. They did the CAT scans. You know, when he felt it and touched it, I knew at that point, like I knew it was cancer, but I didn't know. And so it was Friday. By that time, it was like Friday, late afternoon. And they're like, hey, we got to do the imaging back and forth. People got to look at it. We'll call you on Monday. So from the time I drove from the Urology Associates to my shitty apartment 30 minutes away, my phone rang. And I know this now. Ethically, they're not supposed to call you and tell you you have cancer, but that's what happened. And I picked up the phone. He says, Nick, where it is and where it's located and the size of it, it's pretty serious. They can't biopsy it, so they can't tell you exactly what it is, like what the cancer cells are made out of. They can't biopsy brain tumor or testicular cancer because it like will spread for some reason. So they have to remove it, then biopsy it. Then they know what the plan for chemotherapy is. And so he said, Nick, you have cancer. You have surgery on Monday. And I can tell you, and I set all of that up because in that moment, alone, by myself, with no one around, the first thing that came to my mind was, you deserve this. You did this to yourself. You know, there is no like, you know, you chewed and you got lip cancer, throat cancer, you smoked, you got lung cancer, you ate like a dick, you got prostate or stomach cancer. You know, there's no real cause and effect that they know of from the research I've done about testicular cancer. So I'm speculating. Mm-hmm. But the stress and the wear and tear and the lifestyle and I ate fast food all the time. I wasn't into fitness at all that point in my life. And I just remember really blaming myself for that and being incredibly alone in that moment.
Wow. That's crazy. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that, and especially alone. I mean, that's something that, you know, I can't even imagine. You know, at this point in time, your whole life kind of stops 32. And, you know, at this point, are you in sales with NCI or anything like that? How old are you, Nick, right now?
38. I'll be 39 in November. So
okay, so that was 8 years ago. Okay.
2 years ago. Mm-hmm.
Okay, just trying to see the timeline. Wow. So you go to surgery. Everything turns out well at that point. Full recovery, or are you going through chemo? My mom has stage 4 breast cancer at one point. Kind of beat it, and she now has to get PET scans, kind of like the rest of her life, and kind of go through that whole process. Where are you in this, and what happened from that time?
Yeah, the good news is I'm out of the 5-year window. I'm still will always for the rest of my life be a higher risk for cancer. The reoccurrence of cancer once you've had it is high. So that's something that will always always be existentially on my mind, and I'll carry around with me. I just try to be grateful and humble for every day that I get up and thank the Lord for a chance and a choice. My chemotherapy plan was the heaviest. So they scale chemo light to heavy, and mine was the heaviest that they could give someone my age.
Right.
And so I had surgery, which is very invasive and very painful. Obviously, they remove it from your abdomen, not your actual scrotum. So it's a very invasive, like nerve damage, etc. So it was like 3-4 months of just like trying to walk properly again and things of that nature. And then I went to go see the oncologist, and then that's when shit got real. Like they brought in so many forms and so many consent waivers. Once again, I'm by myself going through this, and like this really, it's a weird scene when you're in a chemo ward floor. It's a hollow feeling. And they told me that I'd have chemotherapy 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, every other week for 2 months. And it was the most intense battle of my life because it is so juxtaposed. You have to go to this place that's poisoning you and literally could kill you. Even if you got a fever, you have no immune system, that's poisoning, but I got to do this to survive because you're playing your percentage game at that point.
That's crazy. Now, family are you still talking with them? I believe I saw that you had a show recently, and I think that was your family that was with you. I think I was catching some stuff there. Where were they during this whole point? You didn't live with you, but they were a phone call away. Did anyone come and see you, or literally you were just kind of solo in this whole time frame?
Yeah, my father, which we talk about as well. I hadn't until about 6 weeks ago. I hadn't seen my father in 22 years. My father had never seen me as an adult male. So at that time, he wasn't a part of the process. My mom was living in Michigan at the time, North Michigan. So she would drive down on the weeks that I had chemo because I was so sick. By day 3, 4, and 5 of 8 hours of chemo, like that's 40 hours a week of chemo. Most people go into chemo for like a couple hours a month, and I'm doing 40 hours a week every other week for 2 months.
How do you survive that as far as financials as well? Is insurance covering some of this, and now they're covering for living expenses? Like that seems like you would need an Aflac or something like that to like cover your other bills, right? How does that work out? This sounds really petty, everyone, but that was the biggest stress because they can't tell you anything. Like you call the insurance man, don't even get me started. The most stressful part, honestly, about cancer wasn't fighting to survive. It was figuring out what the hell was going to go on with my life. Even if I do survive this, you're getting checks, you're getting bills for $150,000. Yeah.
And you're trying to get answers and no one has an answer. And you're like, dude, I'm fighting for my life. You guys, this is what you get paid to do. And I can't even get a straight answer for anyone. And for years, bills would come in that I'd have to argue and fight and like all of this time and resources and being on the phone. Like you'd see how pissed off I get about it right now.
Yeah.
And, at that time in my life, I was a general manager of a brick and mortar retailer, making general manager type money, which is okay money, that long ago. I had good group health insurance, but my deductible was still like $50,000 or $20,000. So I had to hit that, and then everything was for free. But then I couldn't work, right? And so I had burned up all my vacation time. So like my paid vacation time battling it, I had to go to my company and start borrowing future
earnings.
Yeah, of vacation time to cover. But then my mom wasn't working and the bills are coming in. So my mom came to me and she, I don't know if you guys know this, but it's harder to ask for help than it is to ask for love for most people. And I hate asking for help because, I've done basically everything by myself my whole entire life. And so my mom came to me because she wasn't in the best financial situation either. She's like, Nick, you got to start a GoFundMe. We can't afford this. And the only reason I did it was for my mother. My mom, I'm a single child. My mom had me when she was 18 years old. My father was never around. So like I did it for her. And then that GoFundMe raised more money in 36 hours than I'm ever comfortable ever admitting. And that was the fundamental change in my whole entire life. When that happened, I was once again alone in that room, in that apartment, looking at the computer screen and watching the money come in from people who I had been in fist fights with in high school that I hadn't talked to in 20 years, from my high school principal who I made his life a living hell, people I thought that hated me, people I'd totally forgotten about, anonymous people, friends of people. In my heart, I remember my heart fundamentally, like I could feel it shift in my body. And I once again, I'm not like, I went to Irish Catholic school my whole life. I'm not like, I am a spiritual person, but I literally in this moment got and surrendered to God on my hands and knees. And I said, God, if you give me another at bat, if you give me one more chance at this game of life, I promise you, I will use my few gifts that you've given me to serve other people. Because in that moment, the kind acts and service of other people fundamentally changed me. I had no idea, guys, this was like 7-8 years ago. I had no idea. I was an alcoholic. I was massively overweight and sick. I had no freaking hair on my head. I had no identity as a man. I was dealing with massive regret in my life of, am I going to die an unconsequential man? Because they come and tell you like, hey, Nick, we're going to put you through all this chemo. But after the chemo, you still have a 50% chance of the cancer coming back and spreading to your organs. And if that happens, you have a 9% chance to live. So I'm thinking this whole time, I'm like, I'm getting this money from people. It's going to pay these bills and these expenses, and I might not even live. Like these people took a bet on me, and I'm not even sure I'm going to be here.
That's like, crazy, man. That's wild.
That to me, it was everything. And I will tell you right now, and I hope we have time to get into this, but that promise that I made and that moment of decision, I will not break that promise for anyone. I have removed some of the most important people in my life, people that I love, that I've built massive businesses with, best friends, people in my family, I have removed, ex-girlfriends, I have removed, if you ask me to break that promise. Like if you're rolling with me in life, you have to understand I have to serve, I have to impact, and I have to use my few gifts. And since I've subscribed to that theory, everything that I've ever wanted has come to fruition, but even so much more than I've ever imagined.
That's great, man. That's good testimony. And I don't know if you know, but this podcast is fundamentally purpose-driven with faith, fitness, fellowship, and finances. And we serve those 4 pillars in this podcast. And so I know you said you're not completely sold on faith yet. You kind of like you're in and out. I'm not sure, but you've grown up with that. I'd love to discuss that at some point. And maybe it doesn't have to be this episode, but in the future, if you ever wanted to go down that road, I'm actually hosting. If I can get this up by next week, I don't know if I will, but by Mondays, Tuesday next week, 7 o'clock. I'm hosting a whiteboard Bible study from my church they put out, and it's kind of goes from Genesis to Revelation in this kind of whiteboard storytelling, and not in one session. It'll be 18 sessions over the course of the time, but I'm going to host it because I feel like it's just my point. It's my time to serve. It's my time to give back and, be the church. God asks you, or Jesus asks you to say, be the church, and church doesn't have to have walls, man. We can all do our part to, pay homage to what we feel are the blessings that are put upon our life and the opportunities and things of that nature. And you were given a second chance. There's no doubt. And, however you guys want to believe that, or Nick yourself, you've been given an opportunity, and it looks like you're serving that opportunity to the best of your knowledge and the best way you can. And this is just my also way of saying, I grew up Catholic, but I had parents that kind of went to church on just Christmas and those kind of holidays. So we weren't really like a faithful Catholic. And I took a class in college, and it was like Religion 101. And I kind of learned about all the rest of the religions. So at that point, I was not completely sold on Catholicism, and kind of didn't like that the priests could be able to tell me these things and, kind of like, talk about my marriage and give his input when he had no clue. So I kind of was like all bent out of shape about it. So I kind of walked away from religion for a good 10, 15 years. And I kind of went under Craigism, which is like very like much karma, do to others what you want done to yourself. And it wasn't too much later that I found faith, and we can get into it another time. But I just want to say, it's amazing to hear that testimony that you are serving and that you are giving back in the best way that you can. And by pouring into others, man, I hear your messages. I hear the heartfelt passion that's in them. I love the way you articulate. I love the way you bring up different linguistics, the way you say it. I actually do like enjoying listening to you. So if you guys aren't following Nick, you do have to follow him. And where can they do that, Nick? Let me just give you a quick plug before, in case someone jumps off by the end. Where can they follow you? What can they do to listen more?
Yeah, the two main platforms that I'm on are Instagram and TikTok. You won't see me on there dancing or doing anything silly, but it's just at Nick Ross Speaks, NickRoss Speaks.
Right on. And we'll put all that stuff in the show notes. So if you need to go anywhere, we'll definitely give him his shout and all that stuff. But that's phenomenal. So
I just want to clarify because it's important that I clarify this. I absolutely have faith, and I believe, and I teach, like, the first step to changing your life is you have to have faith, because nothing else works.
Okay.
You're going to implement after that. Right. It was at those times of my life where I didn't have faith.
Okay, right on.
You know what I mean? I was broken, but yeah, at this point, man, I wake up every single day and thank God for the chance and the choice, and also for the adversity in my life. You really have to thank and be thankful for the adversity, because it's the only way you find strength.
Love that. That's awesome. So from that point on, okay, you're here, you're still here 6 years later after that incident. And how do you get over it? And what kind of, before we even get to the wins, put me in the mind frame, like you're second guessing everything. Anxiety's through the roof, stress is high. How do you even come out of that? Like, how do you dig yourself out of that hole? Because there's people that may not have cancer to that extent, but they're in depression, and they're in pain, they're overweight, however they may, relate to your struggle. How do you climb out of that deep, dark hole of depression and anxiety and stress? Like, what are the first things you do?
I'm going to answer that question, but I want to be real with everyone here and let them know that it wasn't that way right away. What I did is I dug myself a much deeper hole. Yeah, I wasn't done, apparently. What I did was I got a phone call from my doctor, says you're cancer free. And what I did is I went out, and instead of getting an Uber, I drove that night, and I wanted to celebrate with my friends that I was cancer free. And on the night the day that I was told I was cancer free, I made one right turn, and I got pulled over and got my third DUI.
Shit.
And so the day that I found out I was cancer free, I got my third DUI, and I'm locked up and in jail for 2 days, broke, couldn't even get to my phone, and I sat in jail for 2 days. That's what I did. And so I had to go a lot further, because there was still things, even though God had put his hands around my neck and said, son, wake up. And I had made that promise. At that point, I wasn't dealing with my imposter syndrome. I was dealing with the self-sabotager. I had completely sabotaged the greatest win of my life. And man, you want to talk about regret? Now, I ended up getting out of all of that and had to do some community service and had to do some things. It cost me more money than I ever had. I had to take out a massive loan to pay for that. And that set me back many, many more years in my life. So I'm not here to just sit here and like bullshit, like, oh, everything was instantly better and my life completely changed. That wasn't the truth. Apparently,
can I challenge you on this though? In 1 second, I feel, and you might have heard this too, but when you ask for patience, God doesn't make you patient. When you ask for money, God doesn't throw it in your lap. He gives you the opportunities to show those patience, or to make abundance, right? Like, you have to hit this place of like rock bottom in order to become Nick Ross that speaks today. Mm-hmm. This opportunity, I'm going to call it an opportunity, although it was a shakeup. It was a near death experience that gave you your story, that now gives you the right to talk and gives you the opportunity to make a shift in your life from a place where no one would want to hear, I'm just, this alcoholic, or this, maybe you weren't alcoholic, but I just drank and pissed away my life, to a place where I actually hit that bottom, and I'm able to talk about this and have a conversation with someone like myself and others and speak on a stage and inspire. So, God gave you a gift and an opportunity at that point, because he kept you here, and he said, I'm going to give you a life worth living at this point. Maybe something by design that I can create for you. But he also gave you the chance to say, I'm going to right my wrongs and I'm going to pay it forward, which is phenomenal. And I love this. And so go for it, man. Tell me the arc.
Yeah, I just want to mention this too because I was an alcoholic. The reason I didn't see my father growing up is because my dad had 10 DUIs, right, across several states throughout his life, and so I was heading down that path, man. And at that time in my life, all I could ever remember is you're going to grow up to be just like your father or my mom, right?
Yeah.
That one line that will just always tear through you.
It's a better episode than I thought it was going to be. I knew there was a story here, but I knew there was some passion in his voice. I had to figure out where it was coming from. So, man, take it away. Talk to me about how you. All right, so now you're at rock bottom. You're in a jail cell. What's going through your head?
The most embarrassing conversation ever happened in my life after that. I went home and I had to get counsel on how to deal with my third DUI. So I had to call my dad.
Wow. And he's out of jail at this point. He's wherever. And
yeah, I'm getting advice from my father I haven't seen in 22 years that has 10 DUIs to try to figure out how to get out of mine. That's how bad the situation had been. Is
he at this point in time sober and doing well or no?
No, I mean, my dad still drinks. Yeah. Yep. At that time, I hadn't really been talking to him either. I had attempted to repair that relationship for so long, but now I had to go to the man that I didn't want to be and the thing that I didn't want to be because I had to figure out how to get out of the problem because I was becoming him. So
how did that conversation go?
He was empathetic and compassionate. I was losing my mind because I understood that if I was convicted of that DUI, I was going to jail for a year. I was going to lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. And to have to sit in there like you just got a fucking second chance of life and then you just pissed everything away. Yeah. I just had to figure out how to take care of myself. And then that's when I began to seek help and seek an online nutrition coach, actually, of all things, because I was really overweight, really unhealthy from the chemo, ballooned up to about 265 pounds, hair like growing back like peach fuzz, like you don't even recognize yourself in the mirror. And so after that situation is, and I talk about this quite a bit on my podcast, which is you got to let the deadwood burn. You have to allow the truth. The truth will only set you free, right? And what do they say? I'm not great at quoting scripture, but correct me if I'm wrong, is like the path to heaven, the path is straight and the way is narrow, right? And having a focus and an aim and allowing the bits and pieces of me through the truth to burn, which was, if you continue down this path, you are going to become him. And I just couldn't. So I reached out to help someone that I knew was fit, that was healthy. I just wanted to get healthy. Actually, what I wanted, I'll tell you what I wanted as I'm talking about it. I wanted discipline. That's what I wanted. Because in my whole life, I never had discipline because I kept reverting back to the alcohol and the partying and the drugs to soothe pain, right? Instead of looking myself in the mirror and say, man, I will no longer tolerate this from you. Why do you keep putting yourself in this situation, man? When is enough enough? When do you draw the fucking line for your own self? When do you do that? And I couldn't take it anymore. I literally did not recognize who I was, what I stood for. I'm sitting there staring myself into black pits of my iris, looking at myself and not knowing who I was.
Man, love that. Your friends, same friends the whole time? Did you end up removing these people from your life because you felt like that might have been the habit or the loop or the thing that brought you back, or did they grow with you? Like, talk to me about that, because it sounds like there's, listening and having this dialogue, it sounds like there's a reoccurring theme, but it's not just you. It's probably the influencers, the habits, or the things that are bringing you back that you probably had to overcome in some capacity, I'm assuming. What did that look like with that friendship circle? Because you were out with people when you got your DUI.
Yeah. People would ask me, like, because I through some of this, I was drinking. They're like, should you be drinking going through chemo? And my excuse to them was like, well, the things that they're putting in my body is a million times worse than this alcohol. That's how I justified it.
Wow.
I've never talked about this. This is a really good question. The very first two people that showed up for me were my two best friends at the time, and they brought over a bunch. So right when that phone call happened, I was diagnosed, and I said I was at home alone. It was like 5 o'clock. I called my two best friends. They scrambled home from work. They drove over to my apartment, and we just drank and listened to music and just laughed and just didn't think about it. Because the most messed up feeling at that point in time, there's something in my body that wanted to kill me. Like, it's a really weird fucking feeling to have, is like something internally that I most likely created is trying to kill me. And so those two guys that showed up and that helped me through that situation, I have not seen either of them probably in 5 or 6 years. And that kills me, because I knew I put them through a lot as well.
Yeah.
I've never healed or had resolution to those conversations. I've tried as well. I'm sure there's other complications in there. My circle of 5, on the way of just like my path to becoming my highest self, which I'm nowhere even there, but that had to start with auditing of my circle of 5, which is something that I learned along the way. I think I learned it from Andy Frisella from the MFCEO back when it was that, which was an activity of going on a piece of paper, drawing a circle, 5 lines, and then you have to write 5 names on that circle of 5 people that always tell you the truth. So, hey man, your fly's down. You got something running out your nose. You got something on your teeth. These are people a little disagreeable, very assertive. They're going to tell you like, hey man, I don't think you should post that on social media. I think that's a bad idea. But they're always going to support you on the path to your highest self. Right. As long as you're not doing damage to yourself. And so I realized in that point in time that everyone that I put down on that circle was also an alcoholic. And the only thing that I ever talked to them about was commiserating about their misery, their suffering, or sports. Right? Because you hang out at the bar, you drink, you know all these people. They're great people. They're good people. But they're all suffering. They're all broken women and men. I'm sorry, broken boys and girls walking around as men and women. They have this, all of them, including myself.
Yeah.
And so I realized, like, man, if you want to get to where you want to actually go and be an entrepreneur and build businesses and do all of these things and impact lives, this is not impacting lives. Although I like these people, they're not impacting lives. And so what happened was, when I first started and got my online nutrition coach, and you start counting macros and doing all that kind of stuff, you start thinking the restrictions of your diet are also going to start restricting who you hang out with and where you go. But you learn intuitive eating, and you learn like, hey, I can eat these things, and I know this equals this type of, grams of protein, etc. So when I first started, I had a bunch of false beliefs about it because I thought I was going to alienate all my friends. And I got a lot of results. I lost 60 pounds in 90 days through online nutrition coaching. Right? Awesome. Macros, cardio, going to the gym, weight resistance training. And along the way, yes, I started hanging out with them less and less and less. And that was fine because I was making more friends at the gym. I met the gym owner. I met the general manager at the gym. I started hanging out with the coaches at the gym. And then magically, which is, I want everyone to understand this because this always happens. Magically, all those friends that I was worried about losing and that I did start hanging out with less, guess what not all, but a lot of them did. They reached out and they said, Nick, I'm so proud of you. You are inspiring all of us. How did you do it? That was the first inkling of what I was going to do. Because I realized in that moment when I helped my friends win and I watched them win based upon what I could serve them with, that is the greatest feeling in the world. You cannot replace that feeling. There is no individual win that feels as good as watching your friends and family win, or your teammates. I gotta jump on this with you too, because my coaching business started off, if you followed my journey and if you guys are following and if you're listening, most people found me on bodybuilding.com or Cellucor, some of the places where I've authored fitness programming, and they saw me just as the fitnesspreneur, if you will, right? The fitness author. But I've so much elevated my game to, kind of like what Battle Plan stands for. And I tell my client group right now all the time, and we're undergoing like somewhat of a migration to more personal development and kind of what you just mentioned. When I make a transformation in someone else's life, that's like I'm a dad. You don't have kids right now, right? Do you have kids? I consider myself a dad. I raised 2 young girls, 4 and 7. I love them as my own. Okay, right on. So when they win and when they have joy and when they do something, there's a love that you never
had before without this passion for this child. I have a 7-year-old daughter right now, and when she does something, there was just like this unlocking of my heart, of this like passion and this joy and this just like this elevation of just like this feeling. And I can't even explain it, but I can teach my clients to obviously help themselves and get this transformation, because when they have it, I get similar feeling, right? I get that transformation that I'm pouring into these kids of mine or these other people, and they're getting this gift and they're getting this new confidence in this body and this ability to feel good about themselves. But what's happening is what you just said, is now their whole network, now their whole sphere of influence is their friends, their family, their coworkers are now being affected by what they're doing. And so I'm literally in a transformation in my coaching business where it's like going from coaching to leadership, where it's kind of like I'm now taking these clients of mine and I'm actually going to develop a leadership council and a group with them. And so I can help them be, what I am to them. And so I will pour into them and help them mentor the other people around them, just because it's more impact, right? It's if I change one, that person could change someone else. I don't need to actually have that person come to me. Let me just pour as much as I can into the person in front of me who I have, and let them lead too. So it's phenomenal. And what you just said hits really home, because I literally just spoke for an hour about this last Wednesday to my group about kind of some changes that I see coming too.
Yeah. So what's happening here is like, we live in a dopamine pandemic, right? That's the real pandemic that's going on, is that dopamine, people are addicted to dopamine and dopamine dumping into their brain. Well, dopamine is the selfish drug. It's dumping to make you continue to do the actions that feel good so you can get that reward system. But when you help someone else, right? And this is due to our tribal nature. If this didn't happen, we would have ripped each other apart as tribes. We never would have came together to farm and art agriculture and take care of each other. When you help others, or you watch others be helped, you dump serotonin and oxytocin, which also is much more powerful of a combination than just dopamine itself. So you're being rewarded for watching good acts or acts of kind service. So the idea is, if a man is walking down a busy, crowded street in a city and he's wearing a backpack, and some papers fall out of his backpack, and the person behind him is like, "Hey, sir, excuse me. So your folders and your papers fell out." Well, he puts them back in his backpack. Well, what happens is the person that got help, the guy whose stuff fell out of his backpack, he is now more likely to go do something kind and nice for someone else that day. But the other amazing thing that's going to happen is that anyone that witnessed that kind act is now more probable and likely to go out and do something of service, a kind act, and help another person. And that is what is called a communitarian approach to self-development. See, I do not believe that the pathway to self-actualization is self-development. Okay. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. I don't believe that the pathway to self-development is self-actualization. The pathway to self-development is through helping other people. It's a communitarian approach. And what I think is that most people find the cardinal meaning in life, not from the consequences of their own self-development, but due to the acts and services and sacrifices they make to help others. And then the adoption of the responsibility to do that. You put that weight on your shoulders and you say, you know what? My problems aren't as big as someone else's. Every single time I help someone get what they want, I always get what I want. And what I don't have to do then is suffer. I don't have to suffer, because suffering is defined as me worrying about me. When Nick worries about Nick, I suffer. As soon as I'm like, how can I get Miss Jones, my new client, to 10K, who's riddled with false beliefs about sales and marketing, and I make those epiphanies go off in her head, and she closes her first high ticket offer, 5K paid in full, and now she's done it 2 or 3 more times. She's now at 15K in 1 month, and she's been an underpaid high school teacher for the last 20 years, and she's crying, and now she's trying to figure out how the first beautiful gift she's going to buy someone in her family, and now she's starting to build a financial wall around her family that's impenetrable. Just because I only have a couple skill sets. I'm not that talented. I'm not that smart. I promise you. I just have like an ability to connect with people because I was raised in a very abusive environment, and I have I think, a very high sensitivity to emotional intelligence, because I had to understand the alcoholic walking through the door. I could tell just by the noise of how the door is are they drunk or are they sober? Right. And then having to quickly adapt to that. And I would not have gotten that. I would not have been able to extract that potential if I didn't live through that pain. There would have been no gain if I didn't live through that pain.
That's awesome, man. That's great. And 43. I'm gonna look at the timestamp right now, so I make sure I take that soundbite.
Yeah.
Or tell my people 43. All right, man. That's a phenomenal. So, all right. So now we saw Nick. He was rock bottom. He starts helping people. He starts seeing that there's this pay it forward. There's this homage back to, praising to God and asking for, some salvation, something to give him the right track and the right path. So now these friends that, you kind of influenced out of this situation, have they come up? I know you said you haven't talked to them in years. Have they made changes, or are they kind of still doing the same thing? And second question, do you feel that most people don't make long-term change because they don't actually get the chance to pay it forward, where their helping is self-development and they can always go back to what they know and the habit loops, versus them saying, hey, I'm changing for my kids and for my wife and for my, for whatever else. Like, it's like, I have to be more than me because I have a responsibility to some others, right? Is that you think the go-to strategy for long-term change and actual, let's call it a different path? Because essentially I believe we loop ourselves in a habit, and just it takes one cue to get us back in that spot, right?
Yeah, it's called the positive feedback loop. There's always a secondary benefit. So there's a presupposition in NLP that every behavior has a good intention, right? So even when the serial killer is stabbing the victim 50 times over, like, there's nothing good there that's ever going to come from that situation. There's a positive intention for the serial killer. That's why he's doing it. And so the alcoholic has to continue to drink because that's a bad behavior, but there's a positive intention to it, which is it makes them feel good at lower stress and anxiety. And then now the only way the alcoholic cannot feel like crap in the morning is to drink more to cure the hangover. And so now we have these positive feedback loops that enforce our negative behaviors. Most people stand up their false beliefs like it's their job, like it's some moral obligation to stand up their false beliefs and the things that they know aren't good for them. It's like, man, drop the thing that keeps biting you. Yeah. Like, just drop it.
They don't even see it though, right? I mean, so many times they don't even realize that that's the thing that's happening to them. Like, it's like, if you read the Bible, you talk, the Bibles will talk about, like, these people had their hearts hardened, so it's like they didn't even see it, they couldn't even hear the word. It's like, and I almost feel like that today. I know Nick's not really going to get into the politics like I would, but I feel like that's today. Like, people are, what's right is wrong and what's wrong is right. It's like, it's weirdo land out there, clown land, I call it. But it's, that's a whole nother tangent. I don't even want to go down it. But I'm literally saying I truly don't think people even see it, and it's within themselves and with something else. It's like they need someone outside themselves to see it. And that's why coaching and people like your services, how you're helping your clients elevate and things of that nature, my services, like having a coach in somebody's life, doesn't matter which coach, as long as they're helping you see things that you can't see clearly yourself. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the number one problem. So vision drives decision. Like, if you have no vision, if you have no clarity of what you want, how the hell can you get there? If you don't know where you're headed, then you don't know where your head is. If you don't know where your head is, you don't know where your mind is. If you don't know where your mind is, then by definition, you've lost your mind. And no wonder why you can't figure out what you want or where you want to go. So guys, the greatest lie that was ever told is it's not that easy. Oh, Nick, you didn't make the varsity team. It's not that easy. Oh, Nick, you didn't get straight A's. It's not that easy. Oh, Nick, you didn't get into that D1 college. Oh, it's not that easy. Oh, Nick, you didn't get the girl of your dreams. Oh, it's not that easy. Oh, Nick, you weren't able to build the business. Building the business ain't that easy. That's the greatest lie that's ever been told to man. Because it is that easy. Getting what you want is easy. Figuring out what you want is the hard part.
I can agree with that.
The number one question, the number one question I'm asked in self-development, which I really like to call self-management, is, how do I know what I want? I don't know what I want. Well, that's a freaking problem. Like, if you don't know where you're headed, you're lost. You're unnavigated in life. You have no map. You have no massive action plan.
Mhm.
Like, if you have no map for life, how do you know when you're going to walk off a cliff and hit rock bottom? Like, you don't even have evidence criteria of what you're sick of. That's the first thing that you have to get evidence criteria of. You have to look yourself in the mirror. I'm not talking about hypothetically, guys. I'm talking about go into the bathroom, look yourself in the freaking eye, and have a real conversation to the imposter, the internal critic, and the self-sabotager, and say, man, this is not who I am. This is not my identity. The reason that you do not have what you want in life is because you have an identity that does not support the outcome. If I identify as an alcoholic, which is my subconscious and ego would love to do that every time something gets hard, I can't get the outcomes of a professional bodybuilder.
Yep.
I had to allow that identity to die to adopt the identity of a public speaker as a bodybuilder, my two favorite stages, in order to get the outcomes that I wanted. And I was listening to Bob Proctor talk on a YouTube video. It was like in the 80s. And he was talking about Think and Grow Rich and teachings by Napoleon Hill. And so the idea is this, that as human beings, we live on three planes simultaneously. We are spiritual creatures with an intellectual mind that live in a physical body. The problem is that most people can't figure out what they want because they only identify with the physical body and the physical world. 95% of your life, Mr. or Mrs. Listener, is just sensory input to your 5 or 6 senses. You are just reacting to the reality and stimulus in the world, and you are failing to realize that you are so much more and you are so bigger than just your physical body. You have an intellectual, non-physical mind that is more powerful than all of the computers combined in 1994. Take all of the computers in the world, combine them all, and your brain and your mind's more powerful than that. But yet, for some reason, you never work out the muscle of your mind. And then we're spiritual creatures. We are one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively, split from a trillion different perspectives, all at the same time. You have all the answers that you need. You just have to concentrate and talk to your highest self, to the universal consciousness, to God. We're all one. This is why some people can have all the answers, because they figured this shit out. It's just a science. It's just ones and zeros. Like, you could duplicate success. You can't do it if you don't have vision of it. And you can't do it if you only are living in your non-physical body. Guys, 95% of Americans work for 40 years, from 25 to 65, and get to 65 and retire and have nothing to show for it. That leaves 5% of Americans that have figured this out, that you're living on 3 planes simultaneously. You're a spiritual creature, you're an intellectual mind, and a physical body. But yet you don't talk and think about these non-physical parts, the mind and the spirit. Those have to expand and grow too. So if you're not getting to where you want to get to, I use this framework. I got it from Tony Robbins. It's called RPM. And this will answer your other question. First, RPM creates momentum. Momentum is mass plus velocity, right? And so we want to create momentum in your life, because when you have momentum, you can go upward and forward radically fast. The more wins you have, the more success, the mass, and the quicker you decide, velocity, you can shoot forward. Motivation's bullshit. Motivation ain't going to get you there. It's just what you do when you feel you're unmotivated. So I want you to have momentum. Well, we need to do that by generating RPM. The R is result. So vision drives decision. You have to get crystal clear on what you want. You have to write it down on paper. You cannot type it. You cannot put it in your phone. You have to bring thought form from your intellectual mind and the spiritual idea and connection that put that image in your mind, and you have to write it down into the physical plane. That's part of manifesting the non-physical aspects of our intellectual and our spiritual bodies. So now we got to get crystal clear. You want to make more money? Well, how much money? Here's $1. Get the hell out of here. I want to know, I want to make $1 million in 12 months. I'm going to do this. I'm going to buy that. This is the bank. I'm going to vision it in my Bank of America account. This is the song I'm playing on the way to the bank. It's sunny day. There's palm trees because I'm in Miami. I can smell the salt. I'm putting my hands around the steering wheel of this car. Like that much detail. I can tell you about the houses that I want in the vision of my mind. I can walk every room. I know the cold touch of the granite. I know what it smells like. I know what the stairs look like. I know what chandeliers look like. I have that much clarity of my dreams that I want. So result. P is purpose. What is your purpose? You have to have an emotional driver. What is filling up the tank? What is giving you a compelling future? Why are your feet hitting the ground when the alarm goes off? And what I'm telling you is back to, it's got to be a communitarian approach. It has to be bigger than you, it has to be above you, right? So you're reaching and grasping for your highest self. And I typically find that happens with your family, your loved ones, people that you care about, right? And so when I put their wants, needs, and desires above them or above me, now I have a reason, right? And my one big purpose is that I made a promise to my mom when I was an 8-year-old boy that I would become a professional athlete, right? Well, here I am at almost 39, and I'm chasing that dream 31 years later of becoming a professional bodybuilder, right? And I keep getting so close and so close. I'm almost there. But I'm not giving up on that. So on the days I don't want to do prep, on the days I don't want to eat more chicken, on the days I don't want to do cardio, on the days I don't want to wake up at 4:00 in the morning, how the hell do I go into the bathroom and look myself in the mirror where that big promise is written and then be like, you know what? Mom's 65. She's running out of time. Nick, you're almost 40. You're running out of time. You know what, Nick? Take the day off. Take a play off.
Yeah.
I can't do that because then I break my promise that I made my whole entire life. That's my purpose. And then lastly, M is massive action plan. You have to have a map. You have to know where you're navigating. You have to know where point A and point B. You have to know your hero's journey. You have to know how to move forward. Without your map, you're lost and you're going to walk off a cliff and hit rock bottom. So the massive action plan's got to be 5 actionable steps, small steps that you take every day to stack wins. So you get the self-confidence of that identity that you want. If you want to be a fit person, you have to start acting, talking, and thinking like one before you become one. And then the small wins from that massive action plan, drink a gallon of water, go 10K steps, wake up on the first alarm, make my bed, listen to 20, 30 minutes of a podcast. Guys, those are small incremental wins that if you stack those for 90 days, I guarantee you will be a different person. But you have to get the evidence criteria of the wins. If you can't see the wins, you can't obtain the wins. You have to see the aim. You have to see the aim. You have to see the target. Otherwise, how the hell are you going to hit it?
Yeah, I love that. Man, hopefully you guys pause the video and go back and listen, because he just dropped a boatload of knowledge on you guys. And a couple things I want to pick up on, a couple of different ways that I think of purpose and identity, the way I've heard it. And we watch the same people because, Tony Robbins and some of the other people, we're all in the professional development space. It's a lot of basically listening to somebody articulate a message very clearly. And we all take pieces of it and put it into our life, and it serves our purpose and what we have. And we're all unique in that aspect, because no matter what, Tony's Tony, Nick's Nick, Craig's Craig. We lived and walked in our own shoes, and we have to take the knowledge that we have acquired and put it into our life's purpose and serve it to you guys. But with identity, an easy way to think of this one, and I did a talk on this one, it's like a cigarette smoker. I forget where I heard this specifically broken down this way, but like a cigarette smoker who wants to quit. If you're identifying and you're not really in the proper way to identify what it is that you want in the future. So if you're a cigarette smoker and you're trying to quit, and I ask you, hey man, you want to smoke? Nick, if I ask you right now, you want to smoke, what would you say?
Say, no, I'm trying to quit smoking.
Attaboy. So that's probably the wrong way to identify, because Nick just told you, identify as the thing that you want to become. If you want to get fit, lose weight, whatever that is, you have to put yourself in the mind frame and shape that I don't even do that anymore. I don't even eat that crap anymore. So if I'm a smoker trying to quit, no, man, I don't smoke. I don't care if it was yesterday that I quit. But if you don't shift your mind in that way of thinking, of forward thinking, then you're going to be stuck in that habit of doing that. If Nick was still drinking and things of that nature, hey, Nick, you want to go for a drink? No, man, I got this whole baggage of my past history that I could talk about. He's not going to say that. No, I don't smoke, or I don't drink. I don't do these things. Like, he's going to go forward of the person he's become. And, it could have been yesterday, but that's how you identify and become the human you want to be. Purpose as well. I love the way he broke that down. And, I know some of it was, the messaging through Tony, but phenomenal stuff, man. Make sure you guys go back and listen to that section. That was about the hour mark here. So I don't know. We might chop this up into a couple different episodes because he's got a lot to say. Nick, do you want to bring anything up on that? I mean, we literally, I'm probably going to take some comments from the crowd at some point and make sure we get you on here again. But how do you want to go forward with this?
Yeah, I just want to, my biggest influences of life right now, like I found one and then you start finding the other. One of the defining moments of my life was putting on a Netflix documentary called I'm Not Your Guru by Tony Robbins. And watching that and watching him transform lives, like suicidal people, and how he used, never mentioned, but NLP, neuro linguistics programming, which I later found, really radically transformed my life. And really all of the same maxims that all of these great teachers and coaches like Andy Frisella, Ed Miletz, Earl Nightingale, Napoleon Hill, Bob Proctor, one of my favorites right now, Jim Rohn. I absolutely love Jim Rohn. He's just like the way he communicated, it was so amazing. They're all talking the same maxims that all come from one book, the greatest leadership book of all time, the Bible. Every single one of the maxims that we teach, we add frameworks to them. We add some marketing buzz terms and acronyms so they're easy to remind themselves or remember and talk about. But really, we're all talking about maxims that started from the greatest book that was ever written.
Love that. That's awesome. Yeah, man, I definitely invite you. If you're up for it, Tuesday, 7:00, we're going to do the whiteboard Bible study. I can tell you it's not going to be your mama's small group. You know what I mean? We're going to definitely take it from a mindset motivation and definitely speak to what we know and, use real day scenarios with interpretation of what we believe the Bible to be and speaking to us. And, I'm not going to pull punches. I'll say what I need to say and feel like, let the crowd put their input in there. And I think we need more strong leaders across the board. And if you don't have faith and vision in something, some being, or some version of something outside yourself that, you're not really doing the world a favor at this point. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where I believe, and I'll be political at the end of this one. Sorry, Nick.
You're fine.
I don't believe that, society today, right now, they just want to be like, I'm the end all being. It's my body, my choice, this, that, the other thing. Like everybody's going down this road of like, it's mine. You don't have shit. We're on a spinning rock that's floating around the sun. I mean, at the end of the day, what do you got? We're here by the blessings of the being that put us here. Some people believe that's God and Jesus and all those, deities and that side. And then there's other people that believe something else. Regardless, I could promise you it wasn't some friggin' science experiment or some kind of whatever. There's just no organic matter that we just became. Stop it. There was something there before. And so if you're not believing in something, you guys got something you got some growing up to do.
Here's the deal. Even if you don't believe in God, everyone believes in God. And because every single human being has a hierarchy of beliefs and values. Okay. And whatever sits on top of that hierarchy of beliefs and values is God to you.
Yeah.
Right. So even if you're going to be like, I don't believe in God, I don't believe in a creator or whatever, that's fine. But you believe in God and you need to have a hard look into truth, because whatever sits at the top of your hierarchy of values and beliefs, if that's alcohol, if that's sex, if that's playing video games, whatever it is that's controlling and running your life, that is God of you. And so you got to think like, what is on top of that hierarchy? Because that is what is affecting you every single day.
Yep, that's your idol. They call it the idol. But this is awesome, man. Nick, this was a great episode. I feel like we sit here and go all day, and I would definitely love to bring you back on at some point and we could talk. And he's not far from me, so maybe we'll be doing some collaborations in some capacity. I'm down in Murfreesboro. He's up near Nashville, and we're probably 45 minutes apart, not even. But that's it, guys. I mean, go follow Nick. Go check his Circle the W podcast out. Good stuff. This guy's just getting started. I gotta say, the following that he does not have right now is not a testament to what he spits. I'll tell you that right now. It's one of those things where I think he's a gem. I think he's somebody who's going to grow really fast if he gets the right opportunity. And I think, man, just keep plugging away and I'll do everything to promote you and help you grow. I think I'm on the backside of that journey. I think I'm losing followers more than gaining them at this point, because I'm not producing at the level that the world wanted me to do in just fitness. I'm going somewhere else, but that's okay. I'm shifting, and I'm taking those that are following me in the right journey, and I know what I'm giving to the market, and I think it'll be more effective than just fitness programming and things of that nature, because having conversations like this, opening some capacity in somebody's mind, exploring who they can be, what is their identity, what is their purpose, what is fulfillment, what is legacy, what is vision, what are values. This is all what makes you unique, and be able to pay it forward to something outside yourself. And you went to school today, so that was great, man. I appreciate that. So go follow Nick. Where can they follow you again? Give yourself a plug. Tell them where they got to go.
The podcast is on Instagram is at circletheW, and once again, Instagram, TikTok is at Nick Ross Speaks. And I love to talk to you. I love to help you. My podcast they're short. I'm just bringing the fire on Mondays, bringing the fire on Fridays to kind of set up your weekend for success. And I have a lot of fun doing it. So come join us as well.
Right on. All right, Nick.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.